Hello, everyone. Welcome back to your favorite music podcast called Soundrise, hosted by Aleks. That's me, and I'm here with my friend Vlada. Vlada, you're doing well?
Hello, everyone.
You doing well, mate?
Doing great. Ready to tackle today's band.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, dear listeners, today we're doing an interesting act that we've mentioned before, actually. This act was included in our Patreon poll where we were Sly the Family Stone one. But since it was a tough decision, we kind of wanted to cover this band, regardless, because we were so interested in exploring their sound. Um, and that band is called Inxs, right, Vlada?
Yes, and I have to say, it was my girlfriend's mom's proposal, so that's pretty much the main reason why we're doing this because you don't want to be at odds with your future mother in law, right?
Yeah, sure. That's one of the reasons, of course. Me personally, when I saw the labels, the tags for this band, stating that it was a new wave post-punk band, I wanted immediately to cover them and see what they were all about. So, in excess, this is a band that during their existence, they are not active anymore. They were active from 1977 to 2012. During their existence, they tried to combine and make a proper fusion of new wave slash post punk with some poppy and danceable sounds. And they were originally founded as the Faris brothers or Faris brothers, not sure if the pronunciation is right. But interestingly enough, again we are doing a band where you have family members um, as members of the band actually. So we have Andrew, John, and Tim Forrest, who were members of this band. Um, they were Andrew was a keyboardist, John was the drummer, and Tim was the guitarist. This band initially, as their lead singer, had Michael Hutchins, which unfortunately died in 1997. So post 1997, they would firstly have some, let's say, borrowed singers, but later on they would find their permanent solutions. This band has won numerous awards issued by the Australian Recording Industry Association, also called ARIA, and they were also inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame in 2001. This band features plenty of very well-known and recognizable songs, which you can hear on the radio even today. And some of the records that we're going to talk about today feature these super popular songs. So that's a brief description of this band. And now, Vlada, let's list the records that we're gonna talk about today. So the first one is called Underneath the Colors, which is their second release. So we're basically talking about their beginnings. Underneath the Colors was released in 1981. And later on, we're going to talk about Listen Like Thieves as well as Kick. So three records for today. And we are now going to kick off with Underneath the Colors. So Vlada, hit me with your thoughts about this album.
Okay, so when I was thinking about choosing the records to talk about, I thought it would be wise to take one of their early records because it seems like this band went through a very dramatic transformation over the years. And these early records may come as a surprise to a lot of listeners who only know them by their radio hits. So these early records, you can say that they're very a new wave, very much in line with what was going on at the time, kind of post punk, new wave, with a lot of psychedelic synth sounds. Um, so quite different from what the band went on to do later on. The sound is dreamier, the sound is quirkier. There are a lot of very angular beats and bass lines, and very important to notice, there's also a lot of catchy pop hooks that you hear in the song. So it's a very interesting combination, albeit not the most original one. So you can probably find many other bands who sounded similar at the time. But I have to say though that as a new wave band, Inxs were pretty good, and this is a very competent record, very well played. The songs are highly enjoyable. I have to point out several tracks here. Just a moment. So, for example, the
Several
opening
tracks.
track,
Wow.
"Stay Young" is right on the money. Great beginning. Also, "Big Go Go" is a kind of track that drew my attention because it's very immediate, very catchy with its chorus. It may not be the best track on the record though, but it's quite good in that sense. And then the record closes with a very nice ballad, "Just to Learn Again," with some beautiful keyboard sounds in the background. Still, with all the good things going on, this is not what you would say an exceptional record, but a very, very good new wave record. So if you're a fan of that kind of sound, new wave, post punk, you may want to check this record out, and their first album, the first self-titled album as well. So that's that's my thought. The band was still, discovering their sound, still building their sound at this point. Nevertheless, they they came up with a very strong record, albeit not something that you would deem exceptional for what was coming out at the times.
Yes, Vlada. As a fan of new wave and post punk stuff, to be fair, I'm not really impressed with this record. I have to agree though with the first track and a couple of others. There are tracks who are really catchy and groovy, and the vocals especially remind you of some post punk acts. But this is to me not a true post punk, at least not the post punk that I'm used to. And the thing that lacks here is the dark element which you often see with post-punk bands. This is something that aims to become um, poppy and mainstream, and that's what I didn't really like here. Um, Not saying that it's a bad record, but not I wouldn't really rate that. I wouldn't give it a high rating, to be fair. Um, what I would
I'm
also
I'm pretty much with you on that. I don't think this record is deserving of a high rating, but it's still a good record.
Yes, it is kind of good, and I'm just not sure if they. I think that they were kind of experimenting with this album underneath the colors, because the true pop sound they would develop it later on. In the later records, which we'll talk about in a minute. So this one was kind of okay. My kind of standout tracks are definitely "Stay Young" and also the title track "Underneath the Colors." Really nice vibe there. So yeah, no huge impressions, Vlada. To be fair.
I found it enjoyable. I found it very different from what this band is ordinarily known for. I think the band shows some strengths from the get go, particularly the vocals. Even though all of this is, I feel, taken to another level later on.
Yes, and when I initially saw that they were about, they were something like danceable post-punk band. The first band that came to my mind was Talking Heads. I thought that I was, about to hear some Talking Heads influences, or something, but I think it's quite different. So
Yeah, yeah, this is nothing like the Talking Heads, I would say. This is more, I don't know, it has a lot of pop elements and it has these dreamy keyboards in the background and a very nice pulsating bass. But I don't know, I'm not sure if which band I would compare it to, but says it sounds what you would expect a record from that period to sound like. You know, there's nothing that screams about this band. It's just like, oh yeah, these guys sound great. That's the impression you get, and that's about it.
exactly, Vlada. Yes. Okay, so let's conclude it with our ratings and favorite tracks. So my rating for this album is 6.5.
I will be a bit more generous, and I'll give it 7, just because I really enjoy the songs overall. Uh, Unexpectedly enjoy them. I didn't really think I would enjoy them so much, so I would give it 7.
Okay, and once again, our favorite tracks. I will pick Underneath the Colors, the title track. What about you, Vlada?
Um, Big Go Go, I think, just because that song caught my attention straight away. But it's hard to tell. I mean, the songs are kind of even on this record. It's hard to choose standouts.
Yes, exactly, Vlada. Um, Sorry, my cat is harassing me. Okay, so we've got this wrapped up. So let's move on to the next record, um, called "Listen Like Thieves," and this is a record where they reach their peak. So this is one of their peak records, their famous record, so to say. And to me, this record actually felt like the real deal. This was much more enjoyable, much more established sounds, and I even think that the production was even better on this record. The overall quality of this record is a significant upgrade compared to the previous one, and that shouldn't surprise us given that they've released a lot of records. So it's not like this was the follow up. Actually, there were some records in between. Okay, so yeah, overall, an improvement, Vlada. What about you?
Um, well, to be fair, I for some reason I didn't quite enjoy this record so much. I think it's a good record, nevertheless, but I have to agree with you on some points. This is where the band really established their well known sound, the instantly recognizable sound of Inxs. And this is something that a lot of people tend to overlook when it comes to this band. I mean, it's extremely difficult to create such instantly recognizable sound the way these guys did. And I guess this record is the one where they truly came into their own sound wise. Also, vocals. Michael Hutchins, such an impressive vocalist, such amazing voice, so much charisma.
Yeah, the
Um,
energy is definitely visible
the
here.
energy, the this sort of androgynous rock star vibe in his voice. That's all there. Very exciting to listen to from that point. But I feel like I need to listen to this record a bit more because it didn't really instantly grow on me. Still, the songs are all right. I mean, nothing bad here as far as I can remember. Um, I'm not sure which songs I would single out though. Maybe.
I
Let
think
me
we've
think.
all heard this time. I think it's super popular.
This time, yeah, but also some of these songs. like Listen Like Thieves, for example. Uh, but I honestly, this record, I don't know, for some reason it didn't sit well with me, even though I recognize the progress that the band made with this record, even though gotta say, I think I would want to delve more into their catalog and explore the way they got there from these early records, from these early new wave records to this sort of very funky, crunchy sound that they have here, which is the sound that is most often associated with this band for better or worse, depending on whether you like it or not.
Yes, you're totally right. Especially because this band, as I said, has released a lot of records. So, dear listeners, even though we are covering only three records, bear in mind that this band probably has, a lot to offer. So it's not really easy to get the whole impression of a band when you have so many so many albums at your disposal. So between the previous record that we talked about and this one, they released two albums. So we kind of jumped, from possibly one era to another. Maybe not an era, but a period where a period of their creativity, to put it that way. So it's not always easy to kind of um, have it all, in one place. So Vlada, what is your standout track here and your rating?
Okay, so for this record, I would also give it 7. I think because it's a good, competent record. Again, the band kind of came into their own. Even though I have to say, I kind of enjoyed the earlier stuff more. For some reason, maybe I gravitate more towards that sound. But the exceptional thing about this record is that they truly define their own sound, and Michael Hutchence as a singer uh, gain, gained a new level of confidence. As far as songs are concerned, I think Listen Like Thieves might be my favorite.
Right, Vlada. Okay, so my rating is slightly better than the previous one. I'll give it a 7.5, a 7.5, and my standard track, not really easy to to choose, but I'll go with the title, with the opening track, What You Need. Okay, so we've got the Underneath the Colors Sorted from 1981, Listen Like Thieves from 1985, and now we're doing the follow up from 1987, which is called Kick. So, Vlada, give me your thoughts.
So, Kick. Okay, so this is the big one. This is the one record where you have a slew of hits where, like, even if you've never ever listened to Inxs actively pursue their records or CDs or anything, you must have heard at least half of this album already on the radio, right? So it's a
Definitely.
really, and now people usually don't like such records because they might be too commercial. Usually bands get accused of selling out, and I'm sure that this same thing happened to In Excess at the time, especially if you were to talk to their older fans, I would assume. But I feel that this record is an absolute breakthrough for the band. The formula is very refined here. These crunchy guitar riffs, uh, this kind of rock star in your face attitude that prevails, uh, that permeates the record. The vocals are amazing. You know, like if you look at if you listen to Need You Tonight, which is like probably the most well-known song the band has released. Probably I think there are a couple of others that are quite as big, but I
It's up
think
there
this one,
for sure,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, this one is the one that everybody knows. Just that confidence in his voice, that sex appeal, that there is just something about it, you know. Like at times, he reminds you of other great rock stars and frontmen like Jim Morrison or Jagger. Not vocally so much, but in terms of attitude, in terms of commanding, in terms of his commanding presence that you can sense listening to these songs. So I think that this is a great record as far as catchy mainstream records are concerned. And one more thing that I would like to point out is that, there was this typical sound associated with the 80s, this
Oh
kind of
yes, yes,
keyboard driven synth sound
absolutely.
at that time. But this record kind of deviates from that formula. Like you do associate this with the period as well, just because the band was so popular and their sound was so distinctive. But if you compare it to other popular stuff at the time, this sounds quite different. With these like very funky, crunchy sounds, pulsating bass lines. Very groovy. The entire record is very groovy. Great songs, great hooks. Um, I don't know. I already mentioned "Need You Tonight." I also really liked "Wildlife," which is probably a song that is not talked about much because of its very nice bluesy groove. "Never Tear Us Apart," great song too. "New Sensation," of course. Lots of great hook-filled songs. Alexander, what do you think?
Okay, Vlada. For some reason, this album was kind of a step back for me. I didn't quite like it, possibly because it features a lot of mainstream hits. So probably that was the reason why I found it a bit repulsive. And what I have to praise is the bass here. The bass work was fantastic, and the production was great. So the instrumentation is flawless, I would say, as well as the singing. This is their peak. This is probably the absolute highlight of their career. But for some reason, all of the songs just sound too commercial to me, and that isn't necessarily a bad thing.
But look, I mean, it's easy to criticize the band for being popular, but let's look at these songs objectively. I mean, first of all, they don't sound like anyone else. That's a major plus. Do you know any other band that sounds like them from that period?
Well,
I don't.
to be fair, they sound typical of the 80s. I would say
No, they
with this.
don't. That
For
you
me,
only
for me,
think they
this
sound. No, no, no. You think they sound typical because their sound basically marked this period. This is what you often hear, when you listen to some 80s compilation or something, these songs will come up. So you associate them with the 80s. But this is not exactly, I don't know, Human League or something. It has its own sound.
I have to disagree with you on that. I
I'm
don't know.
just I'm just saying when you hear in excess, you know it's them right away, like from the get go.
Okay,
You may not like the sound, but you can't deny that fact.
you can praise the authentic element, but I just didn't like it compared to the previous two. So it was kind of going backwards. A lot of songs that I have already heard, uh, I don't know, on the radio, on TV, wherever, doesn't matter. So I have to praise the instrumentation and the production quality and the singing. Overall it's good. I mean, you can see the quality, but the overall impression is not that fantastic, so to say, Vlada.
Look, I think we're not rating Bob Dylan here, okay? These guys are not uh, phenomenal poets or something. This record has one goal, and it's to you know to, to attract the listeners with its pop sound, which in itself is original because it's different from anything else. It's like they refined the formula that you could already hear on the previous record. But whereas I find the previous record to be a bit boring, this one is so in your face. It's very aggressive. It's very uplifting. And that's what I like about this record. I don't see it as a profound piece of music per se, but it doesn't have to be. You know, not everything has to be profound. For what it is, it's a phenomenal record. I think as a pop mainstream record, it works great.
This this episode kind of reminds me of the Tina Turner episode where we talked about how Tina's best albums are, you know, good and professional and top notch and very poppy, very legendary, but the mainstream factor is just something that prevents you from giving the records a high rating. So that's the thing. That's how I would put it here.
Well, uh, while I think it's a really good record, I don't think it's a masterpiece or anything even remotely like that. But definitely a competent and very, very appealing record. Very radio friendly, but in a good way. These are the songs that you want to hear on the radio, and I don't know, while you're driving or something. But
That's the thing, exactly. Yeah.
most importantly, I really love the vocals. Michael Hutchins was such a major rock star presence within this band. If you were to take away the vocals from this, even this whole formula wouldn't save it, I think. So I think like it's like a perfect storm. Everything coming together to form this unique sound that made this band popular, that made this band still talked about after all these years. So that's why I think this record is probably the best out of the ones that we listened to and talked about today.
Oh, I can't wait for the rating. So let's jump straight to them. What is your rating, Vlada?
My rating is 8. So this means a very good
Oh,
record, very enjoyable. If you want to listen to something, let's say, with the right edge and attitude, but more listener friendly, more accessible, you may want to check out this record.
so dear listeners, I would really like to know whether this is something that floats your boat, and I'm especially asking post-punk and new wave fans. So, guys, if we have some new wave
But look,
listeners,
look! I have to protest here. Sorry for cutting you off.
why?
Not a very nice thing to do, but now at this point this band is not post-punk anymore. At this point they're a rock pop band. You know, they have transformed their sound, right? They went in a different direction. So maybe the early records are post-punk and new wave. This is not new wave anymore, in my opinion. This is much edgier, much more hard rock driven music, crunchier, has I don't know. It's like a funky version of AC/DC in a way, if that makes any sense.
Oh, that's a nice description. Yeah. Can we draw a comparison here between Inxs and New Order in the sense of starting off with the typical post-punk sound and then evolving into this electronic pop band? Can you draw that comparison here?
Not quite, because I still feel like In Excess is more guitar driven than keyboard driven. Actually, especially this stuff compared to their early stuff has less prominent keyboards. Like they're there, they color the atmosphere and everything.
They're in the
But
background.
yeah, but the guitar is at the focus, which is what I really like. You know, this is again something that deviates from the typical 80s formula. Like they want those guitars to be at the forefront here. So it's different from New Order for sure. I wouldn't draw that parallel, even though I see where you're coming from in terms of changing your sound. but I would also say that New Order is, in my opinion, a much better band, like artistically speaking.
Yes, we will definitely agree on that. So, yeah, we started with the ratings and then kind of expanded the story. Um, my rating is 6.5, and maybe if I give it another shot, maybe then I will change my opinion. As I see that Vlada is pretty defensive and frustrated because of my statements, but that's all. That's all a bit of banter, so to say. Vlada, your standout tracks here or standout track, whatever you prefer.
As I mentioned, of course, everybody knows "Need You Tonight," but I really enjoyed several other tracks. Maybe I would single out "Devil Inside." I really enjoyed that one. "Wildlife" with its bluesy groove, that was kind of cool. Um, but blues performed in a very different way. So I like the fact that this band took chances. I know some people might see this as selling out, but I see it as defining your own sound, creating something that's singularly your own that nobody else has ever created. So I like that. This band deserves more credit than people give it to.
Okay, Vlada. My favorite tracks, my favorite track actually here, hmm, is Mystify. Mystify and Kick are very nice tracks, so uh, I'll go with Mystify instead. Alright, so now we're approaching the end of this episode, finally. um, dear listeners, dear fans, dear patrons, thank you very much for listening to this show. Um, Vlada, would you like to give a quick shout out to our dear patrons for suggesting so many great bands and giving us the invaluable support?
Yes, of course. We're very lucky to have such great and faithful patrons. A huge shout out to all of you, um, Asha, David, Kelly, Andriana, Yanko, Stephanie, and Stefan. All of you guys have been great support, not just in terms of providing financial support, but also in terms of giving us your feedback. I also invite all the listeners to check out our Facebook page, Soundrise Podcast. We are easy to find. Our Instagram page. Also, we are on Twitter. Um, we're on Patreon. So please check us out. Let us know what you think about our output. Any commentary is welcome. So we're looking forward to hearing from you. Um, and of course, if you decide to become a Patreon, you can check our tiers, and we have many benefits for our special Patreons. For example, you might be able to vote for the band to be featured in the show or even propose the artist. So check that out if you're interested in what we have to say about your favorite artist.
And dear fans, take a look and uh, follow closely our social media accounts because we have something special coming, and that's an interview. I'm not going to reveal the details yet, but stay tuned. We're about to add something new to this show, which is musician interviews. So stay tuned, follow us, and we'll see you then very soon.